Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for coming to the Stockton REI Network's online meetup for August 2021. We have a really great presentation today talking about out-of-state investing. And with that being said, love to just dive right into it. Basically, I have an agenda I'd love to share with all of you, and we can go from there. So I'll share my screen. Great. So you can see. Is my full screen showing?
Yeah.
It is? Okay, cool. Awesome. So as we get started here, let's go through introductions, and then we'll get right into out-of-state investing with Jason. And then we'll have time for an open discussion with you to ask questions to Jason and also talk about any other real estate topics that have come to mind. And then we'll save a few minutes at the end for announcements. So we'll start with introductions. It's a small group today, so I think we can go around the circle and kind of share a little bit about ourselves. Love to tell us and the group your name, where you're from, your real estate investing experience, and what you are looking for or what you are hoping to learn in today's online meetup. So I will go first. My name is Willie Marquez, born and raised in Stockton, California, and I currently live here. My real estate investing experience, I have about 10 units. Most units are focused here in Stockton. I have some outside of Stockton in the San Francisco Bay Area, as well as Los Angeles. And I also invest out of state. I invest in Indianapolis, Indiana. What I'm hoping to look for, I'm really impressed with Jason's systems and structures and the networks that he's built. So I'm hoping to learn a little bit about how he's organized this system and this platform for him to continue to invest out of state. With that being said, let's go down the list. Jason, I'm going to save you for last. So let's go to Chris as an introduction, and then after Chris, we'll go to Javier.
How you guys doing tonight? My name is Chris Eccles. I'm an investor in Stockton. I have 2 doors currently. I'm learning every day. Stockton, as you guys know, is getting really expensive, so I'm looking out of state. Currently, I'm looking in Chicago. And what I want to learn tonight is the systems of how to operate out of state.
So thank you, Chris. Javier, if you don't mind going next, and then Vivi, if you don't mind doing an introduction as well.
What's going on, guys? I'm Javier. I'm currently living in Texas, been here about 6-7 months. And I'm on the call because I'm interested in learning the systems and trying to get into real estate investing. I'm brand new. I don't have anything going right now. I'm just currently in the process of purchasing a home for my family and then just trying to grow from here. So I've known Jason for a while in our old Red Bull days. So he's a smart guy. I'm just curious to see what everything's going on out here.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us, Javier. Totally appreciate it. Vivi, if you don't mind going next with your introduction, and then after Vivi, we'll go to Vineet.
So guys, Verley was born and raised in Stockton, California, but I am now residing in Arizona. We have 2 doors, one here in Arizona and one in Georgia. And just here to learn, to meet some like-minded people.
Awesome. Thank you, Vivi, for coming. Totally appreciate it. Glad to have you here. We'll go to Vineet next, and then we'll go to Bruce for an introduction.
Hey guys, my name is Vineet. I'm an investor from Bay Area. I have a couple of properties here in East Bay, which I'm selling. I'm doing an exchange. Willie knows that. So I'm looking here, since to learn out of state. I did buy some properties out of state, but I've sold them, but I'm looking to learn afresh. So that's all.
Awesome. Thanks, Vineet. Lex will go to Bruce, and then Alan with an introduction.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Bruce out of Stockton, California. real estate experience. Just closed on the property on Weber. That was a property on the east side. I was working on that for about 10 months, and it was crazy, man. Like looking at the HUD statement. Yeah, so I'm still trying to soak it in. The lady or the notary, she just left about an hour ago, and yeah, pretty much made 178 on it, which yeah, I'm still trying to wrap my head around that. But anyways, working on another flip on the west side of Stockton. But yeah, just trying to find more off-market deals and do a little bit of wholesaling and flipping, and hopefully do some long-term buy and holds out of state.
So thank you, Bruce. Totally appreciate you coming to today's session. Next, we'll go to an introduction by Alan, and then after Alan, if you don't mind going next, Daniel.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Alan from Stockton, California. Real estate investing experience. I don't really have, probably zero experience. I do own a rental property, but I wouldn't call that experience because it's basically renting out to family and it's trying to help them out. But what I'm looking for is to get some information on out of state in real estate investing, and just hope to learn on that aspect. It's so expensive here in California.
Absolutely. Thanks, Alan, for coming. Super excited that you're finally able to join us. And then we'll close out with Daniel, and then we'll go to Jason. Daniel, if you don't mind coming off of mute with your introduction.
How you guys doing? My name is Daniel Harris. I've actually been investing for about 3 years. I have 3 multi-unit properties out in Indiana and East Chicago and Gary. I'm technically just trying to network with people that are in a similar field in terms of out-of-state investing, because primarily most of the work I do is out in Indiana and East Chicago and Gary. So just to hear what people are doing in other states, other areas, and kind of get my ground underneath me in other areas. So look forward to hearing about places other people are investing.
Awesome. Thank you, Daniel, for coming. I think you might have some overlap with out-of-state markets that some investors are here today that are interested in the same markets that you are. So great to have everybody here. With that being said, would love to transition to an introduction to our lead presenter today, Jason James. So Jason, if you don't mind coming off of mute and giving us your introduction.
All right. First of all, thank you for giving me, the time to talk about something that I'm truly passionate about, which is real estate investing, because I understand the power of real estate and what it can do. So a brief introduction. I'm originally from LA, but I am a Stocktonian. I've been there for the last 20 plus years. So I'm a Stockton native now. I started investing in real estate in 2018. Didn't really know anything, jumped into it. I'll kind of tell a little bit of my story. Start to be more intentional about it and take action and start learning and seeing the bigger picture, right? Like you see how emotional that Bruce got right now. He got me pumped up, just like you can see the power of real estate. You made 178 off a flip, like it's powerful, right? You start hearing these stories and things like that. And so that kind of like, I gravitated towards that because like you can change your life, your family's life and things like that. But since then, I've expanded into some other markets. I've really invested a lot of into like personal development and coaching and things like that I never would have done because I'm truly serious about this because I understand what it can do for me. And I'm happy and excited to kind of share what I've learned, my failures, the things that I've picked up from networking events and things like this, and just talk real estate. So I'm excited to be here. Thank you again, Willie. I think Bruce used to be on next. You got some stories to tell, obviously. So yeah, I'm looking forward to kind of sharing what I've learned and definitely learning from everybody on the call because we all learn from each other. But you know, that's kind of where I'm at right now in my journey.
Jason, tell the people a little bit about I guess yourself outside of your real estate investing. Do you work like a full-time job right now?
Oh yeah. So I used to work for Red Bull with a couple guys on the call, Mr. Daniel Harris, and then also Javi, who was on here. So now I work for Arizona Beverages. So I do have a full-time job. I'm a division sales director for Arizona Beverages. So I do have a 9 to 5 in per se. Yeah. So the real estate is kind of in my pastime, and up until this year, if I'm honest with myself, it was more of a hobby. But now just from networking and coaching and things like that, I'm starting to translate it into a business and be real intentional about it. So, but yeah, I do work a 9 to 5.
Great. Thanks, Jason. So I'm going to come off of screen share here to give you screen sharing capabilities. But I think that's great to hear of somebody with a background who is working a 9 to 5 W-2 job, is able to build a real estate portfolio with that as well. So it kind of shows that other people can do it as well. Yeah, go ahead, Jason. Feel free to share your screen and we'll get started from that.
All right, give me 1 second. Can you guys see my screen or no?
Not yet.
What about now?
Yep, we see the map right here.
Okay, so I got a few slides I want to go over. You know, as we look at this, we're gonna talk about like why out of state, like why is it such a big topic in the real estate world. The model that's been pretty built out. There's a pretty standardized model, which depending on who you talk to, a few variations of it, but for the most part, there's a play. There's a plan to follow and execute and do it well. You do got to get over some fears, some things. We'll kind of talk through that and what I learned by going all in. We'll also talk about my journey, how I started and I love how it started, but because it got me to where I'm at now, and then what I've learned this year and how you can accelerate that. You can literally throw gasoline on your investing if you do pretty much this one basic action, which we'll talk about. So I guess before we start into the why, I guess the biggest reason that I find that people don't invest out of state, the number one reason is like fear. Like when I tell people I invest out of state, it's like, aren't you afraid of getting ripped off? Aren't you afraid of, you know, not seeing your property? Like every story in the book is like, but it's all the underlying issue is fear. So we're gonna talk about like the 5 key reasons why it makes sense to invest out of state. The first one, which pretty much everybody can guess, is it's a lower barrier to entry, right? From a capital standpoint. So if you're out there where Benita is and where Chris is, and you want to get into the investing game at 20% down, you're putting down a couple $100,000 in the Bay Area, right? And for some people, they do it, like, you know, depending on where they're at and their risk tolerance, you can do it. But for a lot of people, that's a tough cookie to swallow. So once you are open to going outside your backyard, you can get into markets where the initial investment is a lot lower. The second is you can find areas that make sense from a population standpoint, a job growth where depending on what your goals are, you can find a market that aligns with your goals. And then kind of the stage I'm in, which is pretty cool, you can diversify your portfolio to match your overall investment strategy. And what that looks like is finding markets where you have maximum cash flow, like a Detroit or Memphis or one of those Midwest states, or a higher appreciation like the Bay Area, New York, Boston, right? Or a combination of both. So once you step out your backyard, you can kind of pick and choose what makes sense for the strategy that you're going after. And then lastly, and it's big for some people, just the regulations. Like I was on a call yesterday with an Ohio property manager. We're just talking about the different regulations from California to Ohio, because he has properties in San Francisco, and they are 10 times more landlord friendly than we are in California. And especially once you get to the Bay, because there's rent caps and things like that. And then also you can find areas that have lower property taxes. So as soon as you can get over the hurdle of going outside your backyard, you can kind of pick and choose what type of market that you want to go after based on what your goals are. And then there's a pretty standard model, like I said earlier, that's kind of built out. First, you really have to understand, like, what is your overall goal? You know, for the most part, the people that I meet and that are getting into real estate is cash flow, right? The intent is to bring in cash flow to replace X amount of your income or the total income. However, depending on where you're at in your career, your life, what you look like financially, it may be appreciation. There are some people who are just want to invest and diversify their investments and invest in a market where it's going to get a lot of appreciation because they don't need the money now. And then once you have a somewhat of an idea, right, of what your goal is, and then you can determine your strategy. And so there's a slew of strategies out there, but some of the most well-known strategies are turnkey, which is essentially you find a turnkey provider. The house is already rehabbed. Sometimes they already have a tenant. And once you pay for it, essentially you're turning the key and you're making money instantly. And so with that, there's a premium, right? There's a cost associated with that because essentially all that is done for you. However, it works for people because, like, from a risk tolerance, it's lower in a sense, right? And then if you're one that's short on time, but you want to get into investing, this makes sense. You have the BRRRR method, which this is another hot topic, out of state BRRRR. This is the one, if and when you learn how to follow the strategy, you can scale really, really fast, right? There's a lot of lessons that you have to learn, a lot of fears you got to get over. And then similar to what Bruce is doing locally, people are fixing and flipping out of state as well, right? Lower barrier to entry, a lot of less capital going into that investment. And then wholesaling. I was on a call yesterday with a guy, Austin, and he's wholesaling in Ohio from the Bay Area. And I think Matt in the Stockton REI group is wholesaling in like Michigan and some of these other states, all virtually. So you can do a lot of things out of state once you figure out exactly what your goal is. Next, you have to research your market. And so this is really, you do a deep dive analysis and a market selection. You got to do some homework. There are some companies out there that kind of simplify this. I use a thing called Privy, which kind of speeds up this process. Of course, it's paid for, and there's different groups and whatnot that you can pay that can help you with this. However, you're looking at the macroeconomics and the demographics. And once again, it goes back to like what your overall goal is, right? And so some of the most common ones are property appreciation, population growth, job growth, the industries, right? You want to look at markets that have multiple industries. Detroit is the one that's always brought up because of what happened back in the auto industry days, right? Like 98% of all their people worked in Chrysler, Ford, and then once they took a hit and that went down, it destroyed that market. However, they're in a rebound. It's a lot of other things going on in Detroit, but like that's the one that comes to mind. And that's the reason why, because if a significant part of that population works in one industry and that industry folds, guess what happens to your rental properties? Like they're gonna fold as well. Another thing is like average rent, median wages, days on market. You want to understand, like, from a rental standpoint, from when you purchase it, how many days on market it's going to take to rent it out. If you're 2 weeks to 3 weeks, that's pretty good. If you're getting feedback from your agent, your property manager, that it's like 60 days, that's probably a market you don't want to be in, because there's some things going on that's hindering people from renting those properties. Average sales price, crime rate, and it's a number of other, different KPIs that you can go after. Those are some of the most common ones. And then once you start meeting different investors, there's these miscellaneous ones that are kind of off the wall. Like some people only invest in college towns, right? And some people only invest near military bases, Amazon distribution centers. So, when you meet people who've been doing it for a long time, they have their niche because it works for them, right? And so this is kind of you pick and choose what makes sense for you based on your goals and your strategy. The next part of it, which is
before you go on to your next topic, I'm curious, what are some resources you use to do this research? I think you listed one of them out there. If you could go over a few, I don't know, sites or platforms that you use to do some research. And I'm curious about your own strategy, like which of these factors do you kind of weigh heavily the most?
So right now, right, so what I know now, population growth is key, job growth. I look for in secondary markets and tertiary markets, so population at least 250 or more, right? And then I look at days on market is critical for me, because I want to make sure I'm able to rent the property in a quick amount of time. Average sales price, and then rent to cost ratio. So, okay, what is this property going to rent for versus what the price of the property is? So those are some of the bigger ones. And then I guess like crime, right? You can have the best house, but if it's in a horrible neighborhood, like you're gonna have problems. So that's the crime rate in the neighborhood. So initially when I went into it, it was more of just the cost of the property, right? Okay, like, and I'll go over that, but it was more of the sales price and then also what it rented for. Could the rent cover the mortgage? And then I didn't really know about CapEx and maintenance. Like I didn't know any of that. It's just like, could it cover the mortgage? So those are the ones that I'm looking at now. But the big ones, population growth, because you want to see where people are moving, right? Job growth, because where there's jobs, that's where people move. And then average medium home price, and then average medium wages. So those are like the four big ones for me right now.
Got it. And what's yeah, go ahead.
City data is a good one. Any of the states websites that has like population data, but city data niche is a good one. Best places. So they all have different variations of population data, housing data. So, and I can put it in a Slack channel, the ones that I'm currently using, but those are the ones: city data, niche, and then and then another good one is like Forbes, because you want to see like how many Fortune 500 companies are there. You just go to Forbes, and that's a good resource for that as well.
Cool. Thanks, Jackson. I'm gonna put these resources, these websites on the chat, so we'll go in there. And then it looks like Bruce had a question. Was it Privy that you use?
Yes, Privy, Privy. And right now, Bruce, Bigger Pockets has like a 14-day trial, but like if you want to jump on it and take it for a test drive, I already paid for the year, so just let me know. It's a pretty cool tool in regards to being able to run sales comps, and you can literally type in your criteria. I'm looking for properties that are under market, 20% on the market value, and I'm trying to do fix and flip, right? And what it will tell you based on this algorithm, one, in that area, how many houses that have been flipped or buy and hold or whatever you're looking for in the last like 6 months to a year, and then properties that would make sense for a flip or a buy and hold. So it takes MLS data, some other like wholesale data. So I can walk you through it if you want to take a test drive on it, but it's pretty cool. But they do have a 14-day trial as well. So
Thanks, Jason.
any other questions? I don't.
Yeah, anybody have any questions from the group? Feel free to come off of mute if you have any. Otherwise, we'll proceed. All right, Jason, feel free to continue.
All right, and then so to me, this is like the critical part of out-of-state investing. The is building your core forward, because you have the perfect strategy, best market, everything, like you can like have just like nailed it. However, if you don't have a strong core four, one really being the property manager, and then the agent, and then the contractor, but mainly the property manager, because you got to take a step back. When you start purchasing rental properties, you have to approach it like a business. And when you're investing out of state, a property manager is managing your business. So if you don't have a solid property manager, they can take what was a great deal in a great market with a great strategy and literally destroy it. So this is a critical part in regards to the out of state in investing. And normally what you do, and I mean, what I've done and what I suggest as you start to get into this, just go with referrals. If you find like a good agent, normally they have property managers that they work with. They can have contractors, lenders, especially if they are a investor savvy agent. And that's the key. When you find an agent, you want to ask them, hey, do you work with, one, out-of-state investors? Two, do you work with investors? And I have a kind of a script of questions to ask if anybody needs that I always kind of go through. One for property managers and two for agents. And I can put that on Slack as well if anybody needs it. But you want to do your due diligence on this part, because this is the kind of the meat and potatoes. Because if you don't get this right, it doesn't matter how good of a deal you found. If you don't have the right people, property manager managing it, they can really make a good deal bad. So, you know, the big thing is, like, as you're meeting people, interview a lot of people, then even if you get a referral, it may not fit. You gotta understand that sometimes different personalities don't click, or what you expect from follow-up is not how they operate. So, you know, ask questions about what's the best way to communicate, what's your follow-up look like, what can I expect from you? Like, the more you ask up front, the better you will know what to expect, and like you can set the tone for them, or they can set the tone for you. So this is, to me, like one of the critical steps to making this work, because if you have a solid team in an okay market, long term, that's going to be a good investment. But if you have a weak team and a great market, it's not going to work out long term. So I would say just do your due diligence on that part. And then the last but least is like the fourth part is taking action, right? You start analyzing deals, running numbers, making multiple offers. And this is where the emotional roller coaster ride comes in, especially now. If you're gonna make a lot of offers, right? You're gonna be getting outbid, and like right now it's a seller's market. So I mean, when we were talking at one of the meetups a couple months ago in St. Louis, we put in a bid on a house and had 75 offers, right? And so that's what you're dealing with in this crazy market. So you just got to understand that's how it's going to be, right? And then just keep making offers. Don't get down on yourself. Like, we are dealing with something that's pretty insane. But if you don't make offers, you're not going to get in the contract. And just continue making offers. And then eventually, it's a numbers game, you'll get under contract. So that's the fourth part of it. So, you know, determine your goal and strategy, research your market, build your core four, and after that, you take action. Any questions?
I don't have a question, but a quick comment. For me, the real estate investing, like Jason mentioned, the property manager is kind of the core out of the core four. You need somebody to manage your business. I found personally that I've been able to get a lot of referrals for contractors, for lenders, for real estate agents, actually from my property manager. So you could potentially leverage one of the core four people to get referrals for the other three. And that's worked out for me and my properties out of state. So just a quick comment there.
Yeah, I've done the same. So one of my agents in Michigan, I got from my property manager, right? And then in regards, so I just working in Ohio, I found the agent. He linked me up with a property manager. I had a call today. He also gave me some referrals for some contractors, insurance agent. So if they're like a rock star in what they do, and if they're investor savvy, that's one of the things that they normally have. They have this, like they call it the Rolodex of contacts, and it makes it that much easier, right? And normally, I mean, you'll have 8 to 10 PMs, 8 to 10 contractors, so you kind of pick and choose. But normally that's a telltale sign of a investor-friendly agent. So let's kind of talk about my journey, and then this is more focused just on the out of state. So my journey was a little different versus the model, so normally we have, and then, based on our decision-making model, right, we kind of decide what we want to do, and then we plan, right, and then commit. And so the problem with that is, you guys ever heard of analysis paralysis, right? You get stuck in that planning stage. And the reason why is because you truly haven't committed to the goal that you're going after. And so I'm wired a little different. Like, I decided, I committed it, and I just figured it out why afterwards, right? And that's the kind of way I work, because it forces me to take action. So this is my first property in Michigan. So back in 2018, purchased it for $54,000. And then for those who haven't purchased your first real estate property, real estate is very forgiving. It's like double, almost, it's like 97,000 value. But within 3 months of research, I was under contract for this property, because I decided, hey, I want to get into this. And my reasons at the time were more for tax breaks, and there's like an extra source of income, not knowing really the power of real estate. Hadn't done anything beyond just some stuff online and researching. And then I'm very analytical, so I just did kind of just worst case scenario risk like analysis. So I'm like, okay, this property is $54,000. So mortgage, insurance, property manager, if it wasn't rented for 12 months, I'm out my pocket like $520. Like, I can manage that, so it wasn't gonna like destroy me. And then also looked at the Roofstock performance. I purchased it from Roofstock, which they're kind of a turnkey, but not really a turnkey company. They're just a marketplace where they sell investment properties, and they align you with vetted lenders, property managers, and whatnot. So it's kind of like a Amazon for investment properties, in a sense, if you think about it. So that's how I got into it. I decided what I was gonna do, and I just jumped in. And then on that, like, I failed forward, luckily, right? And that's just the way I'm wired. I go for failure. And so it was one of those things, like, you don't know what you don't know. So on this property, right, there was a 10-year tenant in there, right? And so, not knowing, like, don't know what I don't know, like, my mindset was like, oh, she'll never leave. She's been there for like 10 years, right? Not even thinking like, okay, she's been there for 10 years. There's 10 years of wear and tear, 10 years of deferred maintenance. And oh, by the way, she ended up leaving, right? And so that was wrong. And then I kept a preferred or existing PM, like, didn't really do my due diligence in regards to asking questions, how they operate, walk me through like their processes, procedures, and systems. And so from a mindset standpoint, it was like, okay, this would be smooth, like this would be easy, right? Wrong, right? Once again, like with them, right? I didn't get my first payment till like 4 months. And it was after I got the tenant's number and called her and had a conversation with her, like, hey, walk me through like what's going on. Like, are you having financial issues? And what it ended up being is like the property manager was that bad that she couldn't get a hold of them. And literally she paid like 2 to 3 checks the next day. That like, so that's kind of what I dealt with, right? And these like the horror stories you hear, oh, don't do real estate. And so like my worst fears happened, right? And it was because like you don't know what you don't know, but I didn't sit back. I took action. So I just found solutions. And I think one of the biggest fears, like I always hear, is like, what if something happens, right? So lost a tenant. She's 2,400 miles away. If my tenant in my Stockton property left, I will follow the exact same process that I follow in Michigan, right? And so it's just a mindset thing, right? And so like if a AC goes out in my Stockton property, I'm calling the HVAC team, right? If it goes out in my Michigan property, I'm calling the HVAC. And so once you can understand that, like you're not actually doing it, like it helped me get over those feels and like the fears. And then like everything that I thought can go wrong went wrong, and I found out a solution, you know? And so that helped build my confidence. And then the other thing is, it's what led me to Bigger Pockets, because I didn't know anything about Bigger Pockets until I got that property, and I was dealing with the situations of like the bad property manager and the tenant. And then from there, that's when I started building some confidence, because start listening to Bigger Pockets. I was on Brandon's webinar every week, like every week. I had this intentional journal. Javi and Daniel, they can attest to that because I took it everywhere, right? I had an accountability partner. I was like a BP freaking groupie. Like I followed it to the T, listening to podcasts, reading the books. But what that did was it built my confidence, like because I was being exposed to all these different scenarios where people were where I was at, right, had the same issues and they were able to overcome it. And I guess the bigger thing is what I learned from the stories, right? So hearing stories like Bruce, like you hear stories like that, like, hey, I just made $170,000 on a flip. You're like, oh my God, like this is powerful, right? And so you start hearing all these stories, how people, how it changed their lives, and you know how they got clear on their why, and it started to really open my perspective, right? Because I was like really consumed with this. I was working for Red Bull 3-4 hours in traffic a day. I was podcast. So it was like in my ear all day long. And I really started getting clear on my why, what was important, my values, family, time freedom, actually building a legacy. If I went deeper into my story, you know why, like I am building a legacy from the James family from now. And then I found out that like real estate is a vehicle that can help me achieve those goals. Like if I'm intentional about it, I go after it, I get over my fears, I lean in, it can get me to where I want to be. And then also I kind of learned about like the stack method, right? A very simplified approach to building wealth long-term by just one property 1 year. Next year, 2 properties, right? Or 2 doors. And then next year you just literally like double. And it could be a year, every year and a half or 2 years, but it's a very simplified approach to expand a portfolio to building like long-term wealth. So that was my journey. And it started with this little $54,000 nightmare at the time. And it when you're in it, it feels like it's bad. But as I sit back and think about it, all it was just making phone calls to fix it. It wasn't, it wasn't nothing detrimental. I just had to make a bunch of phone calls to get to fix the problem. But I'm glad it happened that way, because like everything that people are afraid of happened, and I got through it. I found out a solution. So I'm actually glad that I went through it that way, because now it doesn't even bother me buying, properties sight unseen. I bought, 3 properties in the last couple months sight unseen. I don't even blink an eye, So one thing I want to talk about and what I've learned, and then, so are there any questions before I go into this next slide, by the way?
Yeah, thanks, Jason. So far, really great. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to come off of mute or write it in the chat. One thing that I wanted to say is in my own out-of-state investing experience, it's actually quite similar. Kind of buy something, potentially dig a hole that you're in and find a way out of it, right? And find any way to make it work. So it looks like we have one question in the chat here, Jason. So if you could discuss, do you have an LLC established now, or have you, is that something you've established for your out-of-state investing?
Yes, now. So like this year has been a year of, so like if I take a step back, up until this year, it was more of a hobby, right? I'm have a W-2 job. I'm buying rental properties long-term with the intent of cash flow and, you know, building long-term wealth. But I still approach it as a hobby. Now my approach to it, I'm building on the business, where I'm starting to establish systems and things like that, because I'm not trying to create another job. I would rather talk about real estate, meet people, network, share my story, meet people, learn from them, and have systems in place where this thing operates like a machine. So yes, this year I did start an LLC. And the reason why was to give me the ability to have access to different types of capital. So I got an LLC. I have a line of credit, a commercial line of credit that I'm going to use to BRRRR. Then I also have access to hard money lenders and things like that. So I'll kind of show like the structure, like from a funding standpoint. But that's why I established the LLC, because this year I really started treating it like a business.
Great, thanks, Jason. Any other questions? Feel free to come off of mute if you have any. If not, we'll proceed here. Seeing none, go for it, Jason.
Okay, cool. So, I mean, like I said, this year was a pivotal year for me. Was really intentional about going all in and like taking it to the next level. And what I learned is a way to really speed up the process of investing in real estate, growing a portfolio, knowledge, skills, the whole nine, right? The overall model is still the same. You got to still do some homework. You know, you can read the books, long distance real estate investing, the podcast, BRRRR book. Like, so you still have to invest into one, your strategy, right? What your goals are. You still have to do your market research, figuring, you know, finding a market that aligns with your goals, right? You still have to have your deal finder, your agent, your wholesaler, your lender, contractor. So all the steps of the model still remain the same, right? And you still got to take action, right? So none of that changes. But what I found out, a way to speed it up is like networking. So this year I've been really, really intentional about networking. So at this point in time, I'm having on average at least 4 to 5 one-on-one calls with investors from throughout the country. I'm in a couple masterminds. I'm being a lot more intentional about meeting people for lunch. And what that's led to, just like an expanded knowledge base of different strategies, you know, mentors. I hired a personal coach. I'm in some high-level masterminds with people who are way ahead of me, but I'm learning the strategies that they use to get to where they are. I'm not sure how many of you guys are familiar with like Ryan Adasi. We're in a call with him on Monday. You know, he's in one of my masterminds. He was a guest, and you can ask him questions. So this is one way that you can really accelerate your growth, and make a lot less mistakes, and get guidance, you know. And so what everybody's on this call is doing right now, you're already ahead of where I was back in 2018, because I wasn't. Literally, I was on the laptop, hey, real estate investing, and everything I was learning was from Google, Google and Roofstock. That's kind of where all that came in. And probably fear, right? It was something not normal for me to like jump on a meetup, or I didn't even know about meetups, but I definitely wasn't reaching out. I wasn't following anybody, any social influence in real estate. But what I've learned this year, like, that is the key, right? The key is like who you know, right? Because just like, is he still here? Chris, right? He's investing in Chicago. Like, I know a guy from Chicago who has a brokerage, who has his own construction company, who, he does wholesaling. And so literally, like, it happens that quick just from talking to people, right? And then you hear people's story, you learn about them. In my opinion, it helps, right, with getting over fears when you hear somebody's story and what they went through, and where they're at now, right? And then this is one of the reasons I'm here today. Willie, myself, Bruce, and D'Angelo, we were all talking. We met live, and I'm like, it'd be cool if, like, people share what they're doing, because we all learn from each other. And then, in my opinion, I could be totally wrong, when it's somebody local and they're doing things that you want to do, like, that has an impact, because it shows you, like, I'm not no freaking national guy, or one of these gurus, and I'm just a normal guy that's taking action, that's getting results, and and so I think it's really powerful, and that's what's helped me about getting on my fears as far as networking, reaching out, because it's like widened my perspective like tenfold. So, questions?
Yeah, feel free to come off the mute or put in the chat any questions. I'll say, yeah, Jason has been a regular with the Stockton REI network since they started this last year. And he's the one that kind of brought up the idea of having members actually give presentations and kind of share their story. So I definitely think the intentional piece is super important. It's really how much you want to get out of it, right? If you're really serious about this, then you make those connections and have those talks with people. And if you're not, then you kind of keep it on the back burner and you focus on your W-2. So it's really flexible, up to you. But Jason has a really aggressive goal for units he wants to own, and he's definitely dedicated to actually executing on that. So I always think that that's super impressive. Any questions from the group? Feel free to come off of mute if you have any questions. Seeing none, we can keep going, Jason.
Okay. So just kind of want to give you an overview of like what it looks like now. Like I said, this year has been like an eye opener from just networking with people. And then, I have Steve Rosenberg, my coach. He's really challenged me on, like, it's a business. You have to treat it as a business. It's not a hobby. And really defining systems. And, I met with a guy, Vikas, he's out of the Bay Area. He's been in it for a long time. He gave me some great feedback about the structure of the LLC and make sure I'm protected. And so I'm very coachable. Like, for me, I'm humble. Like, I got a lot to learn. I'll share what I know, but I'm still new into this. And so one of the big things I learned this year is, like, start systematizing what you do and treat it as a business. So if I look at kind of where I'm at now, this is kind of how my process looks. So I have leads come in, and right now it's Ohio, Michigan, and then St. Louis to a extent, a JV deal out there, but really Ohio and Michigan. My Michigan agent already knows my criteria, so he only sends deals that meet my criteria or that are close to it. From there, I then validate his information. Sometimes it's spot on, sometimes it's not. Like I said, I use Privy to validate like comps and things like that. And I use Retometer to validate the rent comps that he sends. And then from there, depending if it looks like it can meet what I'm looking for, then I'm like, hey, go check it out, right? And so then we do, he'll go walk it, video and pics. From there, I send the video and pics to the contractor, and then they'll give me like a rough estimate. And then from there, I know what to offer. And also I'll confirm the rent rate from the property manager, because sometimes rentometer can be either over or under, but your PM can tell you exactly what the houses are going for in that area that they're managing, right? And then if it makes it the next step, then we if we get our offer accepted, then it goes to inspection. So based on what comes out of the inspection, we adjust our offer based on that. Like the last property I just purchased initially was 80,000. We got them down to like 67,000, and we got the plumbing, new hot water heater. So like based on what comes out of it, we ask for concessions, and they kind of negotiate from there. Normally there's kind of a back and forth, and then purchase, and then once it closes, literally it closes on closing date. They take the keys to the property manager, and then the property manager is already in the loop with the contractor. Contractor begins the work. Within 2 to 3 weeks, the property is rent ready, and then it goes on the market. And so within that time frame, like Michigan, there's a lot of city requirements. You got to get the occupancy, and then rental has to be listed as a rental. So there's some like nuances with certifications. So all that's done and it's placed in the market. And so that's my process now. Back to the LLC question, like I'm really treating this like a business. And up until this point, the majority of my purchases has been traditional, 30-year fixed, 20% down. If anybody's doing that, like your capital goes really, really fast, right? You can only do that for so long before you have to kind of sit back and wait to build back up capital, because like you're spending 20, 30,000 plus rehab every time. That goes really quick. And so one of the things this year, like I had to take a step back and like, if I want to accelerate this, I have to have various funding sources. And so with that, that's why I opened the LLC. And so that gave me the ability to get a commercial line of credit, pretty sizable commercial line of credit. Took out a HELOC on that very first property, self-directed IRA, and then got approved in a system for hard money. So I have a few different options that I can deploy, and I can always go back to conventional as well, but that's not what I want to do, because my intent is to burr from here on out, because it gives me the ability to scale and move faster, in addition to some joint venture deals as well. And then future actions that I'm working on is, like I said, I have a call with the guy from Chicago, and his systems are just insane that he has for his company. And he kind of walked me and the couple others in the group through it. And so he's going to kind of walk me through like his systems, how he uses the inbound. So I'll take some of that stuff and see how I can apply it to my business. By the end of the year, I plan to have a VA. So she'll be able to go through all the leads that are coming in, scrub them based on the criteria, and see where she will manage the CRM. And then I'm already working on more partnerships. But like I was telling Willie, like my coach was like, hey, sometimes you have to slow down to go fast. And I respect that, because one of the things he said, he's got to make sure like your foundation is solid and all your fundamentals are good. And then the guy Vikash is like, hey, make sure your structure is right, that you're protected, that you're thinking about the big picture. And so I'm very coachable. I'm humble when it comes to it. I'm aggressive. However, I know I still have a lot to learn. And if I'm getting feedback, I'll take it and then I run with it. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now. And like I said, my approach right now is really building a business that it will eventually be a machine that will run on its own. And so if I think about where I started to where I'm at now, it's like, it's crazy, but I was intentional. I leaned into my fears, but it was all accelerated by me reaching out, networking, getting on meetups, getting uncomfortable, meeting people. And then what you find out, and I don't know if anybody else feels this way, like, I'm in these groups with these guys who are doing like crazy freaking 200, 300 unit deals, but they're just all people. right? Once you start having conversations with them, like they're just like you and me. They have opportunities that you can help, believe that you can add value, like that's what I've learned. Like we all have something to share and that we can add to somebody's situation, even though you may not think it, you do. And so I would just say from a networking standpoint, like continue to do this and do that because that's going to accelerate your growth.
So, and I'm
Questions
sorry.
on that?
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't give a heads up to everybody, but it looks like the conversation with James is kind of taking us really great places. We're at 7:59.
Okay.
So I want to make sure if you have any questions, put it in the chat. But also, James, I would love to give you the last minute or two to any closing statements here.
Yeah, so this closing, one, appreciate you guys' time. So just key takeaways, out-of-state investing is powerful. It's a creative way to get started. You do got to get in with some fears, but you'll figure it out. And like this is the Stockton REI network is a great network because people are easily accessible. We got some guys that are doing some amazing things. You got Bruce. D'Angelo's not on. He's doing some amazing things. Vineet, you're in the game. Daniel, first time on. Like, just reach out to people because that's how you're gonna learn. And like the model's built, just follow the model. And the biggest thing is your mindset and like not getting in your own way and just continue to take action, just baby steps. Because as long as you're intentional, you're gonna build that confidence, and then before you know it, you're doing deals, you're buying houses, sight unseen. You have a network, and it just becomes the norm. So. And then like I'm accessible, reach out to me. I'll share whatever I can, what I've learned. And if I know somebody that can help you out, I'll put you in a loop with them. So, but once again, I appreciate everybody's time.
Awesome, Jason. And I know we're at 8 o'clock now. If you want to get in touch with Jason, can you share how people can reach out to you?
Yeah, just Instagram. So just at Valley Life 209. I didn't put it on a slide. Did you put it on a slide, Willie?
Yeah, I can share that right now.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll stop sharing and you can take over.
That's right. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So you can see the your contact information here. Okay, great. Yeah, thank you, Jason, for presenting today. If you want to reach out to Jason, reach out to his Instagram, ValleyLife209, his Facebook also, Jason James. Obviously, thank you so much, Jason, for coming today. Truly appreciate it. If anybody wants to hang around, ask any final questions. I don't know, Jason, if you have a few minutes, maybe you could take a few questions, but I can also stay on, help facilitate any of those questions. But if not, want to be respectful of everybody's time that it is 8:01. So otherwise, if you have to hop off, feel free to. Thank you for joining. We'll send a message for the next meeting. Otherwise, if you want to hang around, feel free to hang around and ask Jason a few questions. But thank you all for coming, and I appreciate your time.
Hi, guys. Oh, sorry. I think somebody else is talking.
Go for it.
Hey, sorry. I think I've been running a little late, so I might have missed the conversation. But did you guys kind of touch base, like how you guys actually started, which location? Because it's really hard. And also, it sounds like you guys, Jason, you're not really focusing on one location per se, but it sounds like you're hitting in like Iowa and maybe Michigan. Is there a specific reason why you doing that? Is it more like a variety of things in case that you kind of quote unquote hedging different market trends, or how you happen to be in a different location? Is it part of your strategy, or what's your recommendation?
Yeah, so I mean, Willie, I would like you to comment too, because you're based out of state. So how I got started is because, if I don't know, I imagine you're in California, so it was
Yes.
A lot cheaper, right, to invest out of state. So that's how I got my initial property, because it was a lower barrier to entry, right? And so at the time, this was pre-COVID, there was this big push to bring back Detroit, bring back Michigan. There's a lot of money going out there. And so I kind of took that and ran with it. And I stayed in Michigan because it's kind of what started, and I started to build a team, and then there's confidence there, right? Because I knew the market, like I can look at the area I'm in and know if it's a good deal like right away, because I probably analyze like 1,000 properties, right? So if I see a price point in Warren that comes in at like 50 something thousand, it's a 3-bedroom, 1 bath, 1,000 square foot, I know there's a lot of upside, so I'm putting an offer. However, what happened is what's happening around the United States, it's a dogfight, right? And so that was one of the reasons to give me, if I figured if I go to another market, it'd give me a better chance of landing more deals. But also what I learned this year is to really look at population growth, right? Job growth, some of the other macroeconomics that's going to make sense long term. So not only a cash flow play, but appreciation. And so that's kind of the why I kind of hedging my bets, exactly what you said. So like, I think it's good to niche down 100%, especially as you're investing. Some people just stay in one market. For me, I would rather, I'm diversifying, and once I get established in Ohio, like maybe next year, like I may look at one more market, and like a Florida or something like that, where there's a lot of tourist action, maybe Airbnb. And so it's more being diversified in different markets. And so like, that's kind of the play for me. What about you, Willie?
Yeah, I'll chime in really quickly. You may have a follow-up question, Hyung-Soo. But in terms of my path, my brother-in-law, as well as his friend, Derek Clifford, who we've had on the Stockton REI network, they invest in Indianapolis, Indiana. And so I thought to pretty much take advantage of the contacts and the network that they had there. They already vetted the property manager, contractors, realtors, and lenders. So I just kind of went based off of their referrals and started my own path working with those same contacts. That's how I decided to go across those markets. So for example, hearing Jason's story, maybe for me, Detroit might be the next opportunity for me, because Jason has done a lot of the legwork of finding good or bad realtors, property managers, contractors. Not to say that I'm taking advantage of Jason, but you know, we're homies, and we're here for investing in real estate and financial independence. So we all have the same goal here, and I'm sure we'll pass it forward to the next person. So that's kind of how I decided to invest out of state. In terms of targeting specific neighborhoods and markets, I invest in Stockton. I've had a lot of success investing in properties around the University of the Pacific. So my strategy has always been to find those neighborhoods that are near a university, because that kind of gives a guarantee of potential renters who are willing to pay a premium to be close to the campus while not paying dorm fees. So with that being said, I focused on finding cities within Indiana that had a university and finding properties around that university and staying in touch with the university news to see what developments are happening and what areas are growing. So that's kind of how I found it in terms of the specific market that I'm looking at. And then for specific properties, as Jason went over in his strategy, he kind of started with a low price property to kind of get his foot in the water. That was very much my strategy. I bought a home for $30K, 2-bedroom, 1 bathroom, about 800 square feet. And I thought for myself, you know, this is a small enough risk that I feel comfortable with going forward with it. Eventually, I did have some troubles with keeping renters and potentially had to evict a few of them, but today it's appreciated 50K. So the total property value is 80K. I bought it for 30K, which is not a bad return at all. And it's being rented so far. So that's kind of my process of starting at the large market, finding with referrals, starting with the neighborhoods, what is your strategy, and then starting with the specific communities that you're focused in. If you have a follow-up question to that, or if anybody else has any questions, feel free to ask away.
Yeah, thank you. That was very helpful. Also, just one more question. When you guys are started out of the state, did it require you guys to actually travel quite a lot until you have a kind of solid relationship with, you know, all those 4 cores? Or should we expect that?
I will say, I'll give Jason a little bit to catch his breath because he's been talking a lot. But for myself, I've never been to Indiana. I work with realtors who know how to work with out-of-state investors. They take video and they take a lot of good photos. In addition to that, I'm pretty much in daily, weekly communications with my property manager, very responsive to emails. The property manager I work with is very thorough and has a lot of systems in place. They take photos and videos of the property before and after rehab. They also have a contracting arm of their business, so that kind of makes it a lot faster. I will say, personally, for me, I have never been out there. I kind of, videos and photos are sufficient for me, and if I'm working with good people, then I feel comfortable doing it. Not to say that I wouldn't want to go out there. I definitely want to, but I will say for the most part, it is very much they send me a listing. I look it up online. I ask them to send me videos and photos. I look at Google Maps. I do my search on Trulia for the crime and whatnot. And then similar to James and his population statistics. And then from there, I make my decision, submit my offer, secure the home, transition it over to the property manager. And then I pretty much start collecting the rent from that each month. So all of that's done from my computer, all the legwork, all the photos and videos kind of do 90% of the job there. I will say it doesn't catch everything. It's not as thorough and detailed as if you were there, but I feel like it does, like the 80-20 rule, 20% of the work does 80% of the work, 80% of the analysis that you need to do. So that's my situation. Jason, feel free to add your 2 cents.
Yeah, I'll add my 2 cents, and then I'm Daniel Harris. He invests out of state too, so I'm curious to get his feedback on there because I see he's still on here. So I have been in Michigan once, and the reason why is that very first property, I fired the property manager. So there's this transition phase where the tenant moved out. I fired the property manager, so I had to go get the keys. Right, so I went out there, and then while I was out there, I met contractors. And then I met my current property manager. And so had there still been a tenant there and I could have just transitioned to a new property manager, I probably would have went out there. But it was essentially a vacant house from about a couple week period. So I wanted to go out there and then make sure I was able to find somebody to take it over, give them the keys, and then go from there. So it's only been one time. But the last, 3 properties are purchased, I've never been there. And yeah, even like my agents, they already know I'm doing virtual closings. I've already built a good relationship with a virtual closer in Stockton. Like I used her 3 times in the last 4 months. So yeah, I don't plan on going out there unless I have to.
Thank you for the questions, Daniels, if there's anything you wanted to add, since Jason called you out, feel free to add your 2 cents if you want to. Also, the rest of the group, again, if you have any other questions, feel free to come off of mute and let us know or type it in the chat.
Sorry about that. I actually stepped away to the restroom. If Jade could repeat, I would love to give some insight.
Yeah, so she was asking about do you go out to your market to meet like your contacts, your agent, your contractors, and then like benefits of it. I've been out in my market once. Willie hasn't been out there. I think you have, and then just curious of the value that you feel it adds by going out there and all that.
Yeah, so I actually just went to my market for the first time this past weekend, and for the first time seeing all 3 of my units. So everything I was doing was primarily remote. And I had worked with a person in Sacramento. He has a company called Ace Properties. Name is Elliot Eckerby. I had sourced these leads through him and his business. It was actually way before his business exploded, because I'm noticing remote investing is becoming more and more popular. So this is probably like 3 years ago when I actually started doing things remote. And you know, I use the property management specifically because they actually do a lot of my business for me, like Jason referred to earlier. So they source my leads. They actually find leads and walk them for me, because they're not only just property managers, they're investors as well. Some of the team, so they give me comps. I have contractors through that property management company. So 2 sets of different contractors, one set in East Chicago and one set in Gary. So pretty much Jason alluded to a lot of that stuff during the call when he went through a lot of his presentation. A lot of the leads, the team that I have in terms of contractors, et cetera, all have came through my property management.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, Daniel. I will say a lot of people, myself included, think of the property manager as the people that you only talk to when you actually have something that goes wrong or the rent isn't paid on time. But as you and James have highlighted, you know, talking to your property manager about getting market insights, talking to them about a property before acquiring it, all of that is valid experience that they can, valid knowledge that they can provide as a part of their scope of work, because their interests are aligned with yours. Anyone else have any questions?
Hi, this is Alan. Quick question. When you guys go out of state or and you interview property managers or real estate agents, how do you go about interviewing them? What kind of questions do you guys ask?
Yeah, that's great. Jason, I'll go first. You can feel free to come in after, but I like to ask, first of all, what are their criteria for screening tenants? I want to make sure that it is, for me personally, I try to keep a high bar in terms of credit score, 3 times income, whether they have pets, whether they have a criminal background. All of that is stuff that I would use to screen my tenants here. So that's the same criteria I would use to, I would hope that a property manager screens over there. I also ask for testimonials from other clients to see how happy they are with using that property manager, whether they're responsive, whether they are serious about collecting rents, and also being willing to go to court in the case that a tenant doesn't pay their rent as well. For me personally, I try to be pretty hands-off. It comes at a premium, so I try to look for a property manager that has a good network of contractors to be able to do any repairs that are outstanding immediately, so that vacancies are as low as possible. And I try to just talk shop with them and try to see if they know the market and if they are very friendly with real estate investors who are remote. So are they willing to take photos? Are they willing to take video? Are they willing to communicate via text message, via email mostly? I try to see if they have those systems in place for somebody in my situation. If anybody else has any kind of recommendations, feel free to chime in.
So yeah, very similar, all the same questions. I always kind of get an idea like what is their current like vacancy rate, right? Because if they have a high vacancy rate, that can tell you maybe there's some opportunities with their marketing, right? Like if they're not getting their properties filled. I ask them what is their normal tenant stay, right? And ask some questions like that to make sure they're buttoned up as a property manager. Like the guy I talked to today in Ohio was pretty buttoned up. Like all the questions I asked him, he knew where he was from a KPI standpoint. I always ask him, you know, walk me through what happens if there's an eviction, like worst case scenario, how do they manage it, to make sure they fully understand step by step. And you'll get a feeling, right? You'll know if somebody who's done it, and like just by the way they talk, because I've like this guy was pretty buttoned up. He knew all the system, how long it takes, like you know what courthouse it goes to, and I've heard the other people, they just try to like, you know, get their way out of it. And so, and then what you'll find out too is if they're a pretty button-up property manager, they'll start essentially selling you like some of their systems and things that they use. I always ask like, hey, you know, what type of system do you use? You know, a lot of them use AppFolio. That's one of the most common ones. How do you communicate with your tenants? What happens when a tenant has an issue? What does that look like? What's the follow-up process? Like, what is your reserves? So questions like that. And then as you start talking, Alan, naturally they'll start, you start asking questions about processes and systems, they'll just start kind of taking you through exactly how they operate. And as long as they do that, you can tell they're pretty well buttoned up. But like I said, I have a list of questions that like kind of a script that you can kind of plug and play, and I'll post them on a Slack channel for everybody. So.
Yeah, and if you want to even de-risk it, one way you could do it is kind of not put all your eggs in one basket, right? If you have one property, put it with one property manager, the next property, put it with another, kind of do like an A/B test to see which one you actually enjoy working with more. I will say that kind of diversifies your exposure to make sure that you're getting the one that you actually feel comfortable and confident in. But I think like for me, my overarching theme is very much go based off of referrals. If anybody has any prior experience with that property manager, that's probably going to lead you in the right direction. Any other questions before we wrap up here? All righty. Well, thank you again, everybody, for coming. Thank you, Jason, for this presentation and staying after. It's 8:20, so I appreciate everybody staying after 20 minutes. But I hope this discussion was helpful for you, and we will be in touch for the next one. Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Night.